Welcome to Drinks in the Library, the only library where drinks aren't just allowed, they are required. I'm your librarian host, Gigi Howard, and each episode I'll be interviewing a guest about a much-loved book that we will be pairing with a drink for you to enjoy along with us or consider for your next book club meetup. As always, stay curious and support your local library. Hello, Libration Nation. Welcome back to another episode of Drinks in the Library, the podcast where we pair the perfect drink with the perfect book. Today, we're diving into a love story that bends time and breaks hearts, The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. It's a tale of fate, longing, and the delicate threads that tie us to the people we love, even if time itself tries to pull us apart. My guest this week is Heather Maury, a Richmond-area librarian and a lifelong reader. Her favorite book to this day is the children's book Mandy by Julie Edwards, better known as Julie Andrews. Anything by T.J. Klune and Sadeqa Johnson are instant buys for her. She loves movies, especially anything that Henry Cavill is in, anything that features Tom Cruise running, and anything that's a musical. She is a die-hard Duranie and a certified Swiftie. She lives with 5 cats, 2 dogs, a guinea pig, and some fish. Oh, and she also has 2 kids, a college freshman and a first grader, and a husband. To match this beautifully complex narrative, our drink this week is the Ephemeral Encounter, a cocktail that plays with the idea of fleeting moments and the blending of different times, just like Henry and Claire's love story. So pour yourself a glass, get comfortable, and let's unravel the timelines of this unforgettable romance. But yeah, so we've known each other for, I guess, 10 years through library life here in the Richmond area.
Yep.
So how long have you been working in libraries?
Let's see, I started when, Claire was probably like 3. No, she was a little older than that, but this was when we lived in Suffolk, and okay. I was taking her to the Suffolk Library for story times and just was there a lot for different activities, and then they had a part-time position available, and I applied for it, and I got it. And that was pretty much where it all started. And I worked specifically in the children's department.
Oh. When did you move? I didn't know you were... Are you from Suffolk?
No. We actually lived in Portsmouth at the time.
Oh.
And then I would drive to Suffolk for work.
Okay.
So
that little, what is it? Are those all cities? Are they called like the Tri-Cities or something? They're all
Hampton Roads.
Oh,
it's just called Hampton Roads.
Yeah. All right. So you brought to me The Time Traveler's Wife.
I did.
And I had not read it, but you were like, this is an important book to me, and you've already brought up your daughter, Claire.
Yep.
So who were you when you read this book?
I was working in sales.
Oh.
And let's see, I was working in the medical division. It was kind of like a training company. They worked in training materials for different industries. And I was in one division, and a man named Blair was the manager for a different division. And he and I did not like each other at all. And we thought each of us were loud and brash and annoying. And a hurricane hit in Hampton Roads, and no one had power. And so everybody was basically going out to eat to any restaurant that had power. And he and I ended up in the same place because a group of friends that we shared were all out. And we ended up realizing that we were actually pretty compatible.
Yeah.
And so as the manager of his division, he traveled a whole lot. And he called me one day and he said, "Hey, I have to go on this trip. Do you have any books that I could read on the flight?" And I went, yeah? And at the time, I think I was part of Book of the Month Club.
Okay.
And so I had Time Traveler's Wife in my car.
Okay.
And had not read it. And so I said, yeah, do you want this one? So he takes it. He texted me, like, I think during a layover on the trip. And he said, "Have you read this?" He's like, "It's us." And I said, "What do you mean it's us?" We were kind of dating. We like to call it fake dating.
Okay.
Because nobody really knew we were dating, but we knew it. Like, whenever we would go out with our group of friends, it was always, everybody would also go home, and then it would just be the 2 of us.
Wow.
He reads the book, and he says, it's basically us, because Claire is a redhead, artistic, and Henry just keeps coming in and out of her life, which we likened to the fact that he was traveling all the time.
Yeah.
So he was here, he was there, all of a sudden he'd be back. One time he flew back literally just to take me to lunch and then had to go on another trip.
Hi.
So after he finished it, then I read it and I was like, oh yeah, it really is. So flash forward to 2005 and I'm pregnant. And we know it's a girl, and we're trying to figure out.
This is your husband.
Yes.
Because I was like, this is an amazing story, but I was like, what if it's somebody else?
No, this is my husband. Yes, I married him.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
you're pregnant.
Yes, I'm pregnant. We know it's a girl. And so we're thinking about names. And we thought that if we knew it was a boy, that we would name him Henry, because this was the book that got us together, we say. And then once we knew she was a girl, then we decided we were going to name her Claire.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
I like it. At first it was like this jerk through all the emotion.
No, it turned out pretty good.
That's awesome. I'm very happy for you and your
Thank
Henry.
you. Yeah,
So
exactly.
That's amazing. Very cool. And then I guess we'll talk about the story a little bit.
Sure.
So both you and Blair, big fans, I'm taking.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's a challenging book because it is told with crazy timelines because, probably it's important to say that Henry is the time traveler.
Yeah,
and it is not metaphorical. He literally travels through time.
Yeah.
He has what they call later in the book, he is a CDP, which is a chrono-displaced person. So he doesn't choose to time travel. It just happens. He cannot control it. He doesn't control where he goes, better when he goes. He doesn't control how long he stays in that timeline. It's tricky because a lot of times you're reading it in the chapters, it says, that now it's 2000, now it's 1977, and sometimes he's 40 and she's 20. And sometimes he ends up time traveling and he's with himself, a different version of himself from a different timeline, which I absolutely loved. And it's tricky because of that also, that sometimes you have to really think about it because the first time he meets her is very different from the first time she meets him. And I guess he is in his 30s when he meets her for the first time.
Okay, and guide us, what is that like when he meets her?
When he meets her. Okay, she is 6 years old, which is a thing that we are going to talk about.
I think we can acknowledge some of the weirdness of these things.
We are going to talk about this. And I will say that when we did read it, which would have been, I think, 2003, didn't really think about that ramification, those implications. But she's 6.
Yeah.
And part of the thing about time traveling for him is that you don't take anything with you, which means usually he ends up naked once he's finished traveling and he shows up somewhere. So he ends up in this field.
Okay.
And he's in the woods. He's naked. 6-year-old Claire.
Not even a hat. The hat, glasses, nothing.
Nope, not a thing.
Okay.
So 6-year-old Claire comes down the road from her house. She has a very large house and lays out a beach blanket, beach towel, and has all of these craft materials, pencils and pens and paper.
Artist from a young age.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so he makes himself known to her, and she, of course, is startled, and he decides to tell her the truth and say he's from he's a time traveler from the future. She ends up believing him, and that's kind of how it starts. And he can tell her exactly when he's going to see her again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, if you don't believe me, just hang around. I'm going to disappear in a little bit, and I'll be back on this day. If you want to come see me again, then hey, could you bring me some clothes and some food? Because I get really hungry when I time travel. And so that's kind of how it starts for them.
So he knows the 6-year-old will be his future wife.
Correct.
And so then he goes and and I think he gives her like a list of dates. Like,
yes.
These are the dates to look for him at.
So when she's 6, it's the first time she meets him. But the first time he meets her is when they're in their 20s. In Chicago.
Yes.
He is a librarian.
Yeah. Love that.
Yes. And so she recognizes him immediately, and he doesn't know who she is. But because of he knows who he is, he's like, clearly she knows who I am. And that's where it all starts.
There's a past there. And she kind of seeks him out, like this is the first time that they come. And I think it's a complicated premise, right?
Yeah.
And so the time traveling. So what is their relationship like? I'm guessing it's a love story?
It is, yeah. And I read somewhere, I was because I reread it, that yes, it is at its core a romantic love story between Claire and Henry, but it's also a self-love because of the fact that he time travels to other times with himself, encounters himself, and has to take care of himself when he's a child. He has to teach himself when he's younger how to survive as a time traveler, how to pickpocket and how to find clothes and find food and protect himself.
Because a kid, he's jumping all over the place,
right,
and he doesn't know.
And he doesn't know how to do any of that yet.
Yeah.
And as far as for Claire, she spends a lot of her time alone because he leaves. And so she has to become very comfortable with herself and with the knowledge that he's going to leave. So yes, it's a romantic love, but it also is about being comfortable with yourself and loving yourself also and being enough for yourself, I think. Their love is difficult because actually, can I read something super quickly?
I would love that.
So this is actually...
I love that notebook.
Thank you. This is actually from... I think this is the first line of the book.
Okay.
And she says, "It's hard being left behind. I wait for Henry, not knowing where he is, wondering if he's okay. It's hard to be the one who stays." And that's her life, is that she has to help take care of him when he shows up, because a lot of times when he shows back up, he's injured because he's gotten in a fight.
Henry.
He gets arrested so many times, but he always ends up disappearing before they don't ever get like a mug shot of him. They never put him in a holding cell because he always disappears before it. And, and she gets frustrated. She gets frustrated because she wants him all the time and she can't have him. And he gets frustrated because he wants to be with her all the time and he can't be with her all the time. So it's tricky, but something else that I think came out of it is, for a book that is so much about past, present, and future, it really talks about grounding yourself in the present, because the past has happened, the future, you can't do anything about it, so you really have to appreciate the now and to live in the now. And that's where they just grab every moment they have with each other, every bit of... And he comes to just absolutely love just the domesticity of it all. He just wants to go shopping with her and wash dishes with her and just sit around and listen to music with her. And so it is a very grand and sweeping love affair in that sense of the whole time travel part to it. But in regards to the other, it's just a simple... They just want to be in a house together and love each other.
Do you think the message of being present and in the presence is part of the reason? I'm going to butcher her name. Audrey Niffenegger?
Niffenegger.
Do you think that's part of the reason she wrote it?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe a different message.
It could be. I mean, there's a section, and I don't think I wrote it down, but where basically he's telling himself that... you can't do anything about the past. And he was talking about how muddy time is because as a time traveler, because you're going to go back to your past. You've already done that. So you can't do anything with that. You go to your future and then you come back. Now the future is also your past.
Yeah.
So everything's very muddy. And he learns that no matter what he tries, he can't, even knowing what's going to happen, he can't really control it. Thinking specifically, and this is, I'm not going to do any major spoiler alerts, but his mother passes away in a car accident.
Yes.
And she was an opera singer, and he was 6 when she passes away. And that's probably the time that he travels back to the most, is he keeps going back to the day she dies. And he sees it from every angle. He's in a different car, he's up on a hill, he's in a tree, he's in a building nearby. And so he sees it every which way and realizes that there's nothing he can do. He can't change it. And which is very frustrating for him.
I bet. What is it exactly that, I guess I'm not asking what causes him, which we can talk about, but I'm more curious is like, if he can't really control what he goes back to, but he goes back specifically to Claire and he goes back specifically to his mother's death, like, do they explain what kind of pulls him there?
It doesn't, I don't think so. You just come to realize that it's because part of the thing that makes him can cause him to travel is stress. If he's really stressed about something, if he's very emotional about something, that can cause him to travel. And so I think that's probably what it is, because he keeps getting pulled back to those moments that are super meaningful to him emotionally. And so, yes, he keeps going back to Claire and finding her and keeps going back to his mom.
Yeah, to those moments.
Yeah.
Tell me, I'm kind of curious, like, the story. Like, do you have, like, favorite scenes? Because I imagine there's, like, some really powerful ones.
There are. Their wedding is a great scene.
Okay. Guide us through.
Yeah. It's a great scene because he disappears. And
classic man.
Right? He's super gung-ho about marriage, but, somehow he has cold feet. So I think he's 30 in the present when they get married.
Okay.
And he disappears. And so and he knows that he's going to disappear because he's lived his life already. Right. But the 38-year-old Henry time travels back to the day of their wedding. So she actually marries the 38-year-old Henry. And then the 30-year-old Henry shows back up and they basically swap places.
Okay.
And so that was funny. And I love how Claire is just always, she's just, okay.
She's just fine with it.
She just rolls with it all because what else is she going to do?
Yeah.
And she's just like he's been a time traveler his whole life. She's lived basically with a time traveler her whole life since she was 6. So I love the wedding scene. I think that's really great. I love like the very beginning of them meeting when you realize she's meeting and he's meeting, and when she finds him in her present, and they finally are in the same place at the same time at the same-ish age.
Yeah.
And that's, and it's like it's comfortable and they recognize, and not just physically recognize, but like almost their souls recognize each other also.
Yeah.
Of that.
Yeah.
And then, honestly, I'm not going to talk about it, but the ending is just incredible. And if anyone watched the movie with Rachel McAdams and
Eric Bana,
the movie ending is not the book ending. And I remember Blair and I we were so excited when it came out. We were so excited. So we go to see it and we're like, please do the ending, please do the ending, please do the ending. And they didn't. And we sat through the credits thinking that's where it'll be. And we waited for the director's cut because and they never did it. And we were just so sad that they felt that, I guess it was too cerebral an ending. I don't know, that people wouldn't understand it. I don't know, to not do it. But it's just the most beautiful, hopeful, loving ending to a book.
I mean, now you sold it now. Everybody's like, well, now I have to read it.
I have to finish it. Yep. It's just gorgeous. There's a handful of books that for whatever reason, when I go to a bookstore, I just have to go find that book, first of all, to see if it's on the shelf. And then if it is on the shelf, I have to turn. Usually I read the very beginning and then the very end of the book. And it's this one. And the other major one is A Prayer for Owen Meany.
Yes.
Which is why my son is named Owen. That's another story, though. And the ending of that.
Episode 2.
Exactly. The ending of that book, I never fail to cry at the ending of that book. Yeah.
Wow. Good. I'm so glad that you had that. And then, like, talking about their love, let's talk about, like, soulmate and that kind of feeling. Like, do you think they're soulmates?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he keeps traveling through time to find her. And, I mean, I guess you could say, in a sense, she does, too. It's just hers is much more linear.
Yeah.
Than his is. And she's just she's like the touchstone for him, what he always returns to, where his home is, even if no matter where they are, she's his home. Yeah. So absolutely. Yeah. They're absolutely soulmates.
Yeah. I don't want to get too into it. And I was like, and your love with Blair.
Yes.
I don't want to push that on you.
I mean, no, that's fine. I really do love him.
I know.
And he really does love me.
That's
and,
lovely.
We met each other later in our lives. And like I said, we did not like each other. He thought I was much younger than I was. He thought I was fresh out of college.
Okay.
And a know-it-all. And I was not fresh out of college. And and it has been a heck of a ride, but it's been great. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's awesome. How much did you guys not like each other, though? Like, no fighting, I'm guessing.
No fighting.
I'm
just
curious,
like snapping and being sarcastic with each other and telling our separate group of friends, God, he is so annoying. God. And him telling his friends, she is so loud. God, all she wants is for people to notice her. And me saying that about him. I mean, we're literally saying the same things about each other. And then when we went to that restaurant when the hurricane had hit, I think they were doing a trivia night, and the rest of our group, there were like 15 people in our group because, like I said, no one had power. So everybody's trying to get a dinner that's not peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
And everybody else kind of just stopped playing the trivia. And then it was just literally me against him.
Okay.
And it was brutal. Okay. It was just brutal. Like both of us trying desperately to outdo the other one. Uh-huh. And we still do that, by the way.
Yeah. It's part of the fun.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
Keeps it spicy.
Yeah. You know, one thing Bill said to me recently, and like I don't think most couples have this, but like our thing is we riff. Bill and I just riff.
Stop.
Like he one-ups me and I one-up him.
Do you know what we call it?
What?
Yes and.
Yeah. We're improving.
We do it all the time.
Yeah.
We do it all the time. We laugh about the kids, like, because Claire's, like I said, almost 19. Owen is 7, so he was quite the surprise.
Yeah.
And we joke about what it must be like to be raised by us, because it's like, it's a constant yes and. Uh-huh. We're just like constantly on an improv tour, no matter where we. So we're always so proud of our children when they participate. We're like, family business.
I know.
Let's take this on the road.
I know. Comedy tour. Same, because our daughter is proving herself. She's got the chops too, and we nailed it.
The timing, it's the proudest as a parent when your child nails a joke and the timing and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it makes it fun too, for sure. We're the same way. Good riffs.
Riffing and yes and.
Yeah. Talking about the story so like the vibe of the time traveler's wife, because I've always been kind of curious, is it serious? I've heard it's very horny.
Yeah, there's a lot of sex in it. It's not like it's lights out or or ACOTAR or anything like that, but I mean, it's literary horny.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's, when you're grabbing time wherever you can, I mean, that's pretty much, you got to have sex whenever you can, not knowing if he's about to disappear or not. Yeah, that is definitely part of it.
Yeah. What else is it? It's literary. You say it's literary fiction?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's literary fiction. It is it's a higher level of literature than, again, I'm not putting down any other book, because I love me ACOTAR, and Lights Out was a ride and a half, but but it's a different level of a book. And writers are different. Hers is much more of a literary style, and the book has a lot to do with art and writers. There's a lot of poetry in the book because they both love poems, and so that's also part of their dynamic. And the kind of a theme is the fact how art is permanent, and so even when the artist is gone, the art remains. And so he writes her a letter. He writes her a very important letter. And his mother was an opera singer, so he has her music. His father is a violinist and has that music. So that also runs through the whole thing of just how art is your way to leave your mark on the world, so that it's a permanence that you have that your life itself does not have. Yeah.
I was like, always be creating things, making things that weren't there before. Yeah.
And she is an artist. She's a visual artist and does sculptures. She makes her own paper. A lot of her work involves birds, which I always thought was interesting. I mean, is that her? Is that him? Because he's always flying away. So they're both very creative people. He comes again from that artistic background, so does she, and that's one of the ways they work with each other. Is they have that love of art.
And it's set in Chicago too, right?
Yeah.
So
a lot happens in the museum, the science museum there, Museum of Natural History. Okay. He likes to show up there like after hours.
That's another touchstone for him.
Yeah, exactly. There's a great scene where I think it's the first time he time travels when he's a little boy. And so he time travels into the museum where he had gone with his mom earlier in the day. And older version of himself is there, knowing that it's going to happen, and kind of tucks him under his wing and makes it a fun adventure rather than something terrifying. Why am I not in my room?
Yeah.
And, they go into rooms that are off limits to the public. They get to go into where all of the bugs that are not on display are kept and check they get to look at these amazing books and do cool thing. They change the pages to see if anybody will ever notice that's happened. So yeah, Chicago's a big part of it. And the Newberry Library is a huge part of it. And so I wouldn't say it's like necessarily a character, at least not like a primary character. But I mean, it definitely is important in the book.
Yeah, especially like librarianship. So Chicago, you and I know this is the home of the American Library Association. Yep. The Newberry Library is there, which is one of our big children's book awards. I think it's interesting that she chose the character to be a librarian, and so much has to do with books and everything.
And he's more of an academic librarian. It's not like you and me of working with the public, and he's doing seminars and leading people and showing them archival material, things like that. His librarianship is a little more studious.
Not for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes, so I think this might be an interesting thing. People think librarians is all the same job, but it's all very different. And
absolutely.
Especially so if you're listening to this, you're not librarians. There's public. There's academic, there's school, and there's special.
Yep.
And we're all very different levels of the Myers-Briggs.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Could you ever be an academic librarian?
I was for a little while.
You were?
Yeah. After I had Owen,
I
didn't work for about 3.5, 4 years.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of 4 years. And then COVID hit. And in 2021, he was in a half-day program. And we decided that I could go back as a part-time. And Reynolds was hiring.
Okay.
And so I worked there in the downtown branch for a couple years.
Okay.
And it is definitely a different vibe than public.
Working with students.
Yeah. It's much quieter, much more sedate. It was great also. I actually enjoyed it because, especially being at a community college, it was a lot of people that were coming back to school to try something new with their lives. And it was pretty fulfilling to help them. They hadn't used computers when they originally were in school, and they weren't using, they didn't have to use software to write their papers, and they didn't have, to take tests on camera, sitting.
Well, didn't either.
Neither did I. They were used to typewriters and such, and so it was actually pretty fulfilling to help people navigate that and to get back into the groove.
Yeah. Well, good. But now you're back in the public.
Now I'm back in the public world.
Craziness.
Yes. Every single day is different, and it is always something. And I know you've heard it a million times, and I've heard it a million times. It is not just sitting and reading a book. No.
Yes. If there's anything, I want this podcast to be a PSA. For librarians, we don't have time to read, y'all.
No. Oh, my gosh. That would be amazing.
I know. That's the dream.
That is the dream. And everybody, and I'm sure you do this also, but whenever you interview someone and they immediately say, it's because I love reading.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. All right. How do you feel about plunging toilets?
Yes. Yes. We all love reading. But no, plunging toilets. I was helping someone recently, and this is not like I tell this story. People assume, I'm talking about like a 90-year-old person.
Right.
Never used a computer. Did not, but had used a cell phone.
Yeah.
But was and so wonderful, kind, everything, just needed, I forget, a job application or something, and kept hitting the screen with their finger. And I was like, no, we're going to use this mouse here, and had no clue. This person was like 50.
Wow.
Wow. I know.
And had gotten that far.
They'd gotten that far. And
because that literally means that they were, 10-ish or so when personal computers started becoming a thing.
Yeah, and they told me said, I need to get one of these things. But I made it this far without using it.
But had a cell phone.
Yeah, but they had the cell phone, so they knew how to scroll.
Which is why they thought they could touch the screen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of. I always say we're so provincial, we're so feel like my life is basically everyone's life.
Correct.
And I think in the public library, we see that is very much not true.
Right. Yep.
There's so many different ways to live your life.
Absolutely. Which is one of my favorite things about it, is just of watching people come in and think that libraries are just books, and then to realize how much more libraries are now, how much more they offer for communities as a whole.
Yeah. We've got a lot going on, lots of different collections.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a wonderful, very rewarding job, and I hope that we continue to be supported by our communities.
As do I.
You laugh so you don't cry.
Exactly. And sometimes you laugh while you're crying.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do we know about our friend Audrey Niffenegger?
Not a ton.
Not a lot.
Not a ton. And it's not like she's, a prolific writer.
She's written her Fearful Cemetery.
Yes.
Yes.
And then she also wrote a graphic novel, actually.
Oh.
I think it was called The Night Library, I think. And it's about a bookmobile that just shows up mysteriously, and then it's gone.
Okay.
Which was quite lovely. I really enjoyed that.
She's a big library fan.
Yeah,
Audrey.
absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, she seems very, very private, like almost like a Harper Lee kind of a, writes an amazing book and then dips out and then, writes another one and then, so who knows if she's going to write another one. But
yeah. Preparing for this, I did hear, and I don't know if this is true, that she's working on something that's like part 2 of...
Stop! Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
I heard, because I don't think it's a spoiler. Claire and Henry have a child.
They do.
And I think she might be working on something that
involves the child.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a daughter. Her name is Alba, and she's wonderful. And she doesn't show up until towards the end of the book.
Yeah.
But that's also a great part of the story. I'll talk a little bit about it. I'll try to, with a trigger warning that because he's a time traveler, there's a very good chance that any offspring would also be a time traveler, which lends a lot of difficulties to pregnancies. But yes, they do end up having a child named Alba, who is delightful.
Yeah.
So if she's writing a book about Alba, I am all in.
That is what I heard and read preparing for this.
That is excellent news.
I don't know. We'll find out if that's actually true. But fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Thinking about it a little bit more, is there anything that we haven't gotten to in this conversation that you were hoping we'd talk about?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And I'm going to go back to the beginning of the conversation, and we kind of both went, interesting, that she is 6 and he is a grown man, a naked grown man when they first meet. And Blair and I were talking about this, and again, this is not something we really thought about when we first read it, but in today's age, it could be seen as a problematic story because it could be seen as he's a groomer.
Okay.
And because he's an older man, he knows the future. One of the main themes, I think, in this book is free will. Does anybody really have free will? Does he have free will because of the fact that he already knows what's going to happen? So would she have married him if she didn't know she was going to marry him? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I have seen people say that, like in Reddits and things like that, that he basically prepared her, to marry him throughout all of the times as she was growing up. Having read it again, I can still see that someone could think that. I don't think that because I think that he's very careful of making sure that it is always her choice. That it's always very proper and, nothing untoward, and that he wants her to feel like she does have a choice. I'm so glad that we did this because it did give me the opportunity to read it again, because Blair and I have talked about that lately of, is the story okay? Can we still like this book? We named our daughter after it. Is it okay that we did that?
Please don't ruin this for me.
So I'm glad that I got a chance to reread it because... Yeah, I came out feeling just as happy about the book as I was when I read it the first time.
Good. And from my perspective on it, I mean, she's a touchstone for him. That's why he gets pulled back. He doesn't have a choice be pulled to the 6-year-old. He's pulled it because that's who he married.
That's who he marries.
So,
it goes back to the soulmates thing.
Right.
That's the thread that connects them through all of the timelines.
Right, yeah. So I hear what you're saying. Yeah, people are allowed to take from that what they will, and obviously, but I think it's lovely.
I think it's lovely.
Oh, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about the drink.
Oh, yes.
Because we had a hard time deciding. So you were amazing and sent me like the most 2 options, and we ended up settling on the ephemeral encounter cocktail. Yes. All right, I'm going to read this because it's so thoughtful. This cocktail plays with the idea of fleeting moments and the blending of different times. So it's gin, which is a classic spirit representing the timeless nature of love. Elderflower liqueur, which I had never bought, but I did for this. Saint Germain for a touch of ethereal sweetness and floral notes like fleeting memories. Lemon juice for a bright, sharp contrast, representing the jarring moments of time travel. Luxardo maraschino liqueur, a hint of cherry for the sweet romantic core of their relationship with a slight old-fashioned feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the lavender bitters to add a calming, slightly mysterious element like ever-present mystery of Henry's travels. And that one I had a hard time finding. So we just used the sprig of my lavender
Which
plant.
is delightful.
Yes. And I was like, doesn't call for any simple syrup, so I was a little bit nervous. Oh, and you top it off with a sparkling. So I did do a prosecco, but you could do club soda or something too. But I think it's really nice.
I think it's delightful.
It's very lemony, very flowery.
But I do get the old fashionedness of it. But I love it. It's delicious.
It's like a pretty pink color too.
And I love like a sweet and a sour drink.
Yeah, me too. And it, like I said, it's not too sweet, and it's it's my most thoughtful drink yet. Who would you recommend this book for?
That's a great question.
A young Blair and Heather.
A young Blair and Heather, yes. I hope that my daughter reads it.
Claire.
Yes, someday. She is dyslexic.
Okay.
So reading is trickier for her. And this is a tricky book at times.
Yeah.
But I think it would be lovely for her to read it so she could kind of read her parents falling in love. I think anybody who loves art, who is thinking about things like free will and that's a tricky question because I know it's not for every single reader.
But you're a librarian, you know.
Yes, it would be a reader's advisory that I would have to spend some time on to say, you know what, here's what I think you need to read.
Yeah.
But it's somebody who is, I say this not denigrating any other book. I think all books are important, but it's not a popcorn summer book. It's not a quick read. I think you do put it down and think about it when you're reading it. And then there are occasions when you have to flip back and be like, I'm sorry, how old is he? Where are we right now? What time frame are we in right now? She uses a great word. She doesn't say like he's elsewhere right now. She says he's else when. And I just loved the creation of that word. So it is, you have to take some time with this book to really savor it, I feel like. So I think it's for somebody who wants to be challenged a little bit, who wants to go on the emotional ride that, all great love stories have that emotional roller coaster to them. This one just has the added touch of time travel.
Oh, do you think it's a sci-fi book at all? The time travel aspect?
Sci-fi light.
Okay.
I would go sci-fi light.
Okay.
Like if somebody says, I read sci-fi, this is not the first book I would recommend to them. I would talk to them some more and maybe come to this one. But it does. It has a little bit of it. They do they go to doctors to try and figure out why he does time travel. That's a lot of the book is even as a child, he's going to doctors to try and figure it out. There is a little bit of the sci-fi aspect to it.
I have been thinking about that a little bit. So thought I'd throw it in there. So.
And I love sci-fi. Yeah. Love sci-fi. But if somebody came in and said, that would not be the first book I recommend.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to put a spotlight on before we sign off? Anything?
Summer reading is coming up
for
our public libraries.
Yes.
So I encourage everyone to get into your public library and sign this is what I really want to say. Summer reading, everybody thinks, it's for the kids. It is not just for the kids. Public libraries try really hard to make sure that there's something for everyone in the family for summer reading. So don't just sign your kids up for summer reading, sign yourself up for summer reading also. And mostly support your public libraries right now. Yeah. Tell the staff at your public library how much you appreciate them and how you see them and what they're doing is not just sitting and reading a book.
Thank you. I'm going to start crying. But anyway, this has been amazing.
I loved this.
Yes, this is so fun. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I love that. And then we'll just hit. Thank you for spending some time with me and my guests for an episode of Drinks in the Library. For more information about the show, you can find us on Instagram at Drinks in the Library, on the World Wide Web, drinksinthelibrary.com, or shoot me an email at drinkspod@gmail.com. Until next time, cheers.